This is CBN NewsWatch.
And thank you so much for joining us for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. It is Friday, October 11th. I'm Ephraim Graham. We want to begin with extreme winds fueling fires in California while other parts of the country are digging out from a surprise autumn snow. Our Jennifer Wishon has details on the extreme weather.
This Southern California neighborhood just outside of LA, up in flames like a matchbox. Dozens of mobile homes destroyed.
This fire just completely went out of control.
It started when trash being hauled caught fire. The driver dumped it alongside a road.
Oh, man.
Raging winds quickly spread the embers from there.
My daughter came running into our bedroom screaming the hill is on fire.
And controversy. Due to dangerous winds, several utility companies, including the largest in the region, Pacific Gas and Electric, cut power to some 2 million customers from the San Francisco Bay to wine country. As heavy winds blow trees and branches across power lines, the companies say turning off the power prevents sparks that could ignite fires.
If there's any sparks that are derived from our lines, we run the risk of starting a fire.
And as high winds continue, more forced power outages are possible. Farther north and across the center of the country, a completely different picture. From Spokane down to Denver and back up to Fargo, snow. Less than 3 weeks into autumn. Forecasters predict a foot or more will blanket the Dakotas through today.
Kind of crazy, pretty early.
In Denver Thursday, temperatures plummeted from 80 degrees to 30. At the airport, 100 flights were canceled, hundreds more delayed.
This morning before I left home, I put the chains in and the shovel and the ice scraper, just in case.
A good idea since blizzard-like conditions could persist through the beginning of the weekend. Jennifer Wishon, CBN News.
From Massachusetts to Michigan, people are actually praying for an early onset of winter. That's because the first frost will mean the end of a deadly virus outbreak. It's called Triple E, and as Caitlin Burke reports, it's already taken the lives of nearly a dozen people nationwide.
So Triple E virus is a mosquito-borne virus that occurs in the eastern half of the United States, and it's a very rare disease.
That's because the specific mosquito that carries Triple E prefers to feed on birds. Connecticut mosquito expert Philip Armstrong became concerned early in the season when his department noticed an unusually high number of this species.
We didn't have any evidence of Triple E virus until later in the season, but we knew that the conditions were right. If the virus was brought in by a migratory bird, then it could spread like wildfire, and sure enough, that's what happened.
The body's immune system can usually kill the infection, but about 1 in 20 cases develop the brain infection encephalitis. Once that happens, the odds of survival are slim.
Typically on any given year, we average about 7 human cases nationwide, but it's a very severe disease and serious illness. It kills about a third of those that develop the disease, and of those that survive, many of them suffer from lifelong neurological damage.
In Connecticut, 3 of the 4 confirmed cases with Triple E have died.
It starts off with a high fever, maybe a stiff neck, but then it will progress to confusion, seizures, and even coma and death.
Given the widespread severity, extra precautions are underway from New England to Michigan. While mosquito activity is finally winding down for the season, this year's outbreak won't be eliminated until the first hard frost. Until then, people in affected regions need to avoid mosquito bites.
That could mean doing simple measures like covering up, wearing long-sleeve pants and shirts and socks and shoes when you're outdoors, particularly in the evening hours when they're most active, and consider wearing a repellent to any exposed skin surfaces as well, and that will do a long way to protecting you and your family.
Scientists at the Connecticut Agricultural Experiment Center have actually found that the Triple E virus can survive the winter, even though mosquitoes don't. That means that next summer we could be faced with another Triple E outbreak. Caitlin Burke, CBN News, New Haven, Connecticut.
Caitlin, thank you. Thousands of Christians, Kurds, and Yazidis are fleeing the Turkish invasion of northeast Syria. The Turkish army and its allies pounded Syrian democratic forces from the air and from the ground. Jihadist troops from the Free Syrian Army are fighting alongside Turkey, a NATO member. The invasion stretches the nearly 300-mile northeast Syrian-Turkish border. Humanitarian agencies warn up to 250,000 people may be displaced. The White House said Turkey had committed to protecting civilians and religious minorities, including Christians, but they've broken that pledge. President Donald Trump was asked if he would support sanctions against Turkey.
Let's see what happens. We are going to possibly do something very, very tough with respect to sanctions and other financial things.
Meanwhile, the fighting continues. Christian fighters came to this church, kissed the Bible, and headed back to the front lines to defend their homeland against Turkish fighters. Turkish soldiers are praying the Quran before battle. In a tweet, President Erdogan said he would like to kiss the heroes of the, quote, Mohammedan army. Now, Chris Mitchell joins us now from our CBN Middle East Bureau with more on this. So, Chris, why would President Erdogan call his army Mohammedan army?
Well, Ephraim, in many ways, they see this as a jihad. We've talked about this before. You know, one of the pro-Erdogan newspapers said to the unbelievers, behold, the army of Muhammad is coming. Just yesterday, they in mosque all over Turkey, they were praying conquest prayers from the Quran. So many times that's how they see this, as a jihad, a religious war. The Free Syrian Army is very important, Ephraim, because they participated with the Turkish army last year in Afrin, where they ethnically cleansed hundreds of thousands of Kurds. They hunted down Christians, they burned churches, and really, I know we've talked about this before, but Afrin is a model of what happened last year, of what Turkey wants to do here. They want to ethnically cleanse this area of many of the Kurds, Yazidis, Christians, replace them. In fact, Erdogan said at the UN just a few days ago he wants up to 2 million Syrian refugees to come into this land. It's not so much that he wants to replace those or resettle those, but he wants to take the people there out of their homes all along that Turkish-Syrian border.
So, Chris, what is happening on the diplomatic front?
Lots of things are happening, Ephraim. I've talked to someone yesterday who was in the Dutch Parliament. They're talking about referendums, resolutions that actually would remove Turkey from NATO. They're talking about sanctions, as this source said, from all over. The Arab League meets tomorrow. They're condemning the Turkish invasion of northeast Syria. The U.S. Congress is perhaps going to have a resolution in a few days. Senator Lindsey Graham is sponsoring that, along with a Democrat, Van Hollen. That's going to place sanctions on Turkey. So a lot of things are happening. You know, one of the main things that I've been hearing, Ephraim, is U.S. evangelical leaders. They believe the northeast Syrian people, the people in the SDF, are looking to evangelical leaders in the United States to really take a lead to stand up and say that this is a place of ethnic cleansing. It's damaging and putting Christians and other minorities in danger. So that's really, they're looking to U.S. evangelical leaders to really speak up and stand up.
Lots to follow there. So why is the issue of ISIS prisoners so important to the U.S.-Turkish relationship?
It's key, Ephraim, because this whole was predicated, the conversation between President Erdogan and President Trump, that Turkey would take care of all the ISIS prisoners. Well, the ISIS prisoners are not necessarily near the border. They're about 100 kilometers away. Turkey has said they're not going to be able to take those. So really, many people are saying President Erdogan lied to President Trump about these ISIS prisoners. They won't be taken back. There's a place called Al-Hul where maybe 68,000, the large percentage of the ISIS prisoners are held. Turkey will not get there. And so that really has undermined the whole relationship between President Trump and President Erdogan. Many people are looking at this as a rationale for the U.S. to impose a no-fly zone all along the northeast Syrian-Turkish border.
Chris, I know it's been a busy week for you. So what's ahead this evening on Jerusalem Dateline?
Well, we're certainly going to have more about what's happening in northeast Syria, about this Turkish invasion. We're going to have something called about Sukkot, the Feast of Tabernacles, which actually starts in about 2 days. This is the season of the fall feast here in Israel. We'll have a story about the history of CBN News. So it's really going to be an exciting and I think very informative Jerusalem Dateline this week.
forward to that. And for you at home, you can catch Jerusalem Dateline on the CBN News Channel. It is tonight. It begins at 9:30 Eastern. U.S. Pastor Andrew Brunson, who was falsely imprisoned in Turkey for 2 years for his faith, says he had a prophetic dream about what's happening now with Turkey. Brunson said he isn't normally involved in politics, but God gave him a dream in December of 2016 while behind bars in Turkey. He says, quote, in the dream, Turkey, Iran, and Russia began to move together in a very dark alliance. He told that to Fox News. He said he shared his dream with the American consulate and a high State Department official. They dismissed his concern, saying it is in Turkey's interest to be aligned with the West. Brunson said God also showed him there will be a spiritual revival in Turkey. Now, you can go to cbnnews.com for the full story on that. Energy Secretary Rick Perry now swept up in the impeachment inquiry against President Donald Trump. House Democrats subpoenaed documents in connection with Perry's knowledge of the July 25th phone call, when President Trump asked the Ukrainian president to look into former Vice President Joe Biden and his sons dealing with the country. Perry encouraged the president to make that call as part of the administration's efforts to help Ukraine fight corruption. He told CBN News he personally discussed Ukrainian corruption with President Donald Trump, Rudy Giuliani, and several ambassadors, but Biden's name never came up.
It's not once, as God is my witness, not once was a Biden name, not the former vice president, not his son, ever mentioned. You know, corruption was talked about in the country, but it was always a relatively vague term of, you know, the oligarchs and this and that and what have you.
Secretary Perry is expected to leave the administration by the end of the year. Planned Parenthood plans to launch a $45 million campaign to defeat President Donald Trump in the 2020 election and to elect more Democrats, ending the Republican majority there. The Hill reports a large-scale grassroots effort that includes all forms of media. It also includes massive canvassing of voters and will target Arizona, Colorado, Florida, Michigan, Minnesota, New Hampshire, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. Kelly Robinson of Planned Parenthood Votes told The Hill the stakes are higher than ever. She says, quote, we're coming out more powerfully than ever with the largest investment we've ever made. Robinson says the campaign will focus on telling people there is a coordinated attack by Republicans to overturn the Supreme Court's Roe v. Wade ruling that legalized abortion. Well, coming up, it is called the walkaway movement, and it could spell trouble for the Democrat Party. The man who started it explains how it all happened. Stay with us.
Remember for a moment what it was like to be a child. You believed every story you were told. You saw a world full of endless possibilities. What stories will the world's orphaned and at-risk children believe? We believe the Bible tells the only story truly worth believing. We believe that every child should have the opportunity to dream, the chance to take challenges and turn them into possibilities, the chance to stand on the promises of God, to recognize their place in the greatest story ever told. They have their whole lives ahead of them. Theirs is a world of endless possibilities. They are looking for a story to believe. We will tell them that story. Will you join us?
And welcome back to CBN News Watch. Walk Away is the motto of a grassroots campaign quickly spreading across the country. Its goal? Encourage traditional Democrats who feel abandoned by the party, today's left-leaning leadership, to walk away from the party. CBN's Jennifer Browder talked with the man who was behind this movement.
What would it take for you to walk away from your social circle, your friends, even some of your own family members? That's what Brandon Strock did when he decided to leave the Democratic Party.
Never lose faith that people can change.
That's his story.
If I can change, anyone can change.
Now an outspoken advocate for President Trump, Strock was once a lifelong Democrat. Tell us just a little bit about yourself and your background.
I live in New York City, and I was a former liberal, a former Democrat my entire life.
He says things changed after the 2016 election.
I was just absolutely shocked and I think kind of horrified in trying to understand how could anyone vote for this terrible person? And I was going on social media constantly asking this question. And that's when finally somebody reached out to me, January of 2017, with a social media clip that very clearly demonstrated how CNN and some of these liberal media outlets had been so dishonest and isolated these moments out of context and created a narrative surrounding Donald Trump and his supporters, which was completely untrue.
After a year of reflection and research, Strock says he left the Democrats. Then in 2018...
So I created something called the Walk Away campaign, encouraging people to tell their own stories and create their own testimonials about why they too are walking away and what they're walking away from. And it just exploded.
When I listen to these politicians today, it's crazy.
But the Democrat Party never really felt right.
I mean, at this point, we have hundreds of thousands of people who have joined this movement and tens of thousands of video and written testimonials from people who just feel that the Democratic Party has become too extreme, has become too hateful, too divisive, and they don't want it anymore.
Strock says he and his team are getting out on the road ahead of 2020.
We do the Black Americans Town Hall. We do Hispanic Americans, Jewish Americans, LGBT Americans. We're talking to groups that are typically voting Democrat in large blocks and saying, listen, you have a choice.
And that's his message. He says they're not trying to make all of these people Republicans, but to get them to step back and really consider why they vote the way they do. In Washington, Jenna Browder, CBN News.
Still ahead, news from the world of sports, from the Patriots and Giants on the gridiron to the latest from the MLB and a different headline for the NBA this week. Stay with us.
Give me that. Bye. Sure, life is busy, but I found a way to make a huge difference in people's lives. I guess you could say I'm changing the world right here from home. I bring medical supplies and doctors to people in need, and dig wells so that villagers can have clean and safe water to drink. I make it possible to preach the gospel in over 100 countries, including right here in America. And when disaster strikes, I'm there, providing food, thank you, and emergency supplies to give people hope again. Every day, CBN and I are making the world a better place. Here you go. My life is hectic, so I joined CBN through Pledge Express. My bank does all the work, and I know that my gift is being used where it's needed most. So become a CBN partner and join Pledge Express, because you can do a world of good right from where you are. Hi, good morning. Are you ready to get started?
Hey, if you're tired and exhausted all day, you can't think clearly, and you really just need a cup or even a pot of coffee to get through your day, then join me, Dr. Josh Axe, for this new series where I'm going to teach you how to transform your diet and use essential oils and supplements to get a better night's sleep.
Get Protect Your Sleep and live your best life with innovative information from 5 leading sleep experts.
If you're not a great sleeper, you can do things to make yourself a great sleeper.
If you're already a pretty good sleeper, you can enhance your sleep and be even better.
Discover a sleep-enhancing bedtime routine, how to put insomnia to rest, learn how to relieve pain that disturbs sleep, and much more in Protect Your Sleep.
Everything you do better with a good night's sleep.
Wake up to your best life. Call 1-800-700-7000 to get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
Don't miss out on this brand new series.
Welcome back. Time now for some sports talk with our own Sean Brown. Let's begin with a big rivalry game last night between the Patriots and the Giants, with a win for the Pats and a record-breaking. Yeah, you can tell I'm not a Patriots fan.
Listen, it's quite all right. Listen, we know Tom Brady's great.
Yes, he is.
We know he's the GOAT. We don't have to keep going. Down that road, he's broken another record.
I've heard it all before.
Okay, listen, Thursday Night Football. Fantastic game. The Giants tried to hang in as much as they could. Actually, the Giants' defense played fairly well in the first half, evening out the score 14-14. But going into the half and then coming back was a different story.
Yeah.
The Patriots, in my opinion, the most disciplined team in the NFL, did what they do. At the end of the day, it came down to a rookie quarterback, Daniel Jones, and the team having 5 turnovers. Daniel Jones threw 3 picks. They had 1 blocked punt, which led to a score, and a forced fumble that also led to a score. And when you play the Patriots, you can't allow that to happen because they're so disciplined, and it's what happens in those blunders that they capitalize on. And so you must be perfect when you play.
Speaking of perfect, Tom Brady has a record. Another record?
Yes, one, he passed Peyton Manning for passing yards, but also he has the all-time record for 192 wins, over 500, most wins by an NFL player, which is to be expected. We knew it was coming, and so congratulations to him. 6th-round pick. I mean, you know his story. 6th-round pick. Who would have thought that guy out of Michigan would be who he is? Who will become who he has become. And so big up to him.
Indeed. Much more pleasant story for me to talk about. New Orleans Saints, that's my team.
Okay.
And Demario Davis winning his appeal over the NFL. We talked about this early in the week. Being fined because of the Man of God headband. That's considered a uniform violation.
It is. It is. Actually, in Section 4 of the rule book, Article 1, it's the general policy, players cannot wear any type of gear that is not either from the team or sanctioned by the NFL, specifically with personal messages. It's not a new rule. It's been there. Players in the past have been fined for that. The upside to this is that he was actually he appealed on Tuesday. The appeal was he won his appeal, and so he doesn't have to be fined. However, he took the $7,000 that he was supposed to pay and applied it to the $30,000 that he made from the headbands and decided to donate it to a hospital. I believe it's St. Dominic's Hospital. And I see the kids were there with their Child of God headbands.
You got it. Theirs as well.
Fantastic, man. So you see, it was a great message, and I'm so glad that he didn't get fined for this. But he donated that and $30,000 that he made from those headbands to St. Dominic's Hospital, his home of Mississippi. And so that's fantastic.
Speaks volumes.
A story. But yes, it is a rule nonetheless. So young NFL players and NFL players, make sure you read the rule book.
You got it. You got it. Real quick, Major League playoffs underway. We know what your predictions were. Where do things stand now? I think you're having fun.
Let's go, man. We knew the Yankees, we knew the Astros were going, we hoped they either were going to advance. What we didn't know was that the Washington Nationals were going to get past the Dodgers. And so now they will face the St. Louis Cardinals. It is a NLCS, ALCS, must-watch games. I'm so excited about it. Can't wait.
Real quick, the NBA, some hot water in China.
Yes. Well, here's one thing you have to understand with the NBA. China, it is one of the largest markets. I mean, they make up, just over 10% of the revenue for the NBA, and the relationship in trying to expand the NBA into other areas. China's one of the biggest areas, and so it may have put a temporary strain on the relationship, but I think they'll bounce back. I mean, they're still playing games, but that's what it is. That's the value of China, is that it's one of their largest markets, if not the largest market. And so, yes, that little tweet that the GM, Houston Rockets GM, put out,
supported the protesters.
He pulled it back for good reason. And so, but yeah, hopefully they'll mend that relationship and keep it. But it is definitely a valuable relationship.
Before we let you go, real quick, going the distance this weekend, what can we look forward to?
Yes, a great story on Glenn Coffey. If you remember, he left the league a while ago. We're airing that story just to find out what he's been doing over, the last 10 years. The God told him to leave, and he left. And he's at much more peace for it. So be sure to tune in for that.
Look forward to that. And you can catch it Saturday at 6:30 and Sunday at 7:30, both Eastern times. And of course, it is on the CBN News Channel. Coming up, what America's favorite fixer-upper stars are up to next. You'll be surprised. Stay with us.
We will move the American embassy to the eternal capital of the Jewish people, Jerusalem.
As the nations rage, you can stand with Israel.
History is being written, and I want to be a part of it.
Call 1-800-700-7000 and get to life.
This is our nature as a country.
Discover the untold story of how Israeli volunteers are changing the world.
We consider it our duty to reach out and help others around the world.
For a gift of $10 or more, you can own the acclaimed CBN documentary To Life.
To treat a human, no matter what he is, which religious he have, which color he is, this is what I'm doing.
Support Israel in their time of need. Get to Life, now available on DVD. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to cbn.com.
And I wish that other people throughout the world could see this side of Israel.
Orphans Promise is committed to loving and serving at-risk children, to helping keep families together, and to creating opportunities for strong and sustainable communities around the world. We're working in over 60 countries around the world, and with your help, we can do even more. There's an old African proverb I love that says, if you want to run fast, run alone. But if you want to run far, run together. At Orphans Promise, we want to run far so we can touch the lives of as many orphaned and vulnerable children as possible. But we don't want to go alone. We're out to change the world, one child, one family, one community at a time. Will you join us?
Big news from Chip and Joanna Gaines, and they had fun announcing it. Take a look.
Drum roll, please. Y'all, we're going to have a hotel in downtown Waco, Texas.
What? We are ready to get started on this iconic building downtown, a few blocks away from the silos.
The Karam building.
It's the Karam.
3,000 square feet.
It's going to be a big project, but we cannot wait to restore it back to its former glory.
As you see there, this hotel has a grand ballroom, a rooftop terrace, and is one of the biggest projects ever for the popular fixer-uppers. The 100-year-old castle-like building will be transformed into a 3-story hotel, complete with the full restoration of its grand ballroom and that rooftop terrace. Well, time now for your Friday Faithful, and I'd like to leave you with this thought. As we wrap the work week and begin the weekend, it's pulled straight from the pages of Scripture. Remember this: greater is He that is in you than he that is in the world. And who is in you? The Holy Spirit, Jesus Christ, the hope of glory. With that work, make today a fabulous Friday and a wonderful weekend ahead as well. That is going to do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. Remember, you can find more of our news programs at any time on the CBN News Channel or online at cbnnews.com. We'd love to know what you think. You can email us newswatch@cbn.com. We'll see you back here Monday. Goodbye. God bless.